Okay, so we're going to resume our annotations here. This is an annotation of Act 3, Scene 5. We're actually going to break this into two halves. So this is the first part of the scene. In this first part of the scene, we have Romeo and Juliet spending their wedding night together. If you remember the previous scene, a couple of scenes previously, Friar Lawrence had told Romeo to go and spend one final night with Juliet before he's exiled, and promised him that he would find a way to reunite the two of them. This is the following morning, so this is following their wedding night, very early on the Tuesday morning. In Juliet's bedroom, Romeo and Juliet are in the scene. In this scene, we're to understand that the marriage has been consummated in secret, so they're supposed to have spent the night together and consummated their marriage together in this evening. And the morning, as they wake up, they realise the two of them have to be parted, and that's really what this part of the scene is about. Now, this scene, or this opening part of the scene, acts as what's called an aubade, A-U-B-A-D-E, and that is a traditional old-fashioned poem often about the morning. It's normally a celebration of the morning, but it's often also a kind of lover's lament. A lament is kind of a sad poem or a sad ballad or a sad song about the coming of morning, and in this case Romeo and Juliet use it to express their sorrow about the idea that they have to be parted. It's a duet, as in the sense that it's spoken aloud by the two of them. They take turns in volunteering ideas about how they feel about the coming of the morning. Okay, so let's have a little read of it, and then we'll annotate some of these key parts here that are highlighted as well. Wilt thou be gone? It is not yet near day. It was the nightingale and not the lark that pierced the fearful hollow of thine ear. Nightly she sings on yond pomegranate tree. Believe me, love, it was the nightingale. So she's trying to convince Romeo not to leave by using images of night and saying it's still night time. And so by saying this, by saying it's the nightingale, not the lark, by saying no, it's still night time, stay with me, we can see that emotion has overwhelmed reason for Juliet. And it's this idea is almost as though before when she was a virgin, she was very kind of cautious, she was very moderate, and she was very reasonable. And now that she's no longer a virgin, she's kind of overwhelmed by her emotions and desperate for him to stay. Romeo, on the other hand, becomes quite clear-sighted and quite rational. He says, it was the lark, the herald of the morn, so the bird that signals the start of the morning. No nightingale. Look, love, what envious streaks do lace the severing clouds in yonder east. Night's candles are burned out, and jocund day stands tiptoe to the misty mountain tops. I must be gone and live, or stay and die. So Romeo here, when he says it was the light, not the nightingale, he's realistic, he's clear-sighted. And what's ironic is previously it was Romeo who was kind of irrational and romantic, and that has certainly changed. Yond light is not daylight, I know it. Before we move on to this part here, let's just talk about this, because I've just realised we've missed the pathetic fallacy here. So you can see I've highlighted the severing clouds in yonder east. Night's candles are burnt out. The pathetic fallacy of the clouds are drifting in from the east, as though there is this sense of the winds of change. Those of you that have analysed Lord of the Flies will be familiar with that as a motif. The idea that the wind brings change and brings change to people's fates and changes the nature of the story. And in this case, the change is that their happiness will soon become tragedy. So the pathetic fallacy, the clouds hanging over them, is almost like doom and danger hanging over them as well. Romeo also says night's candles are burnt out. So they're under, the cover of darkness is gone. Remember, darkness represents safety for lovers because it's that idea of secrecy when they can be together. So the idea that night's candles are burnt out, that cover of darkness is gone, and he realises logically, sensibly, that he must leave. Juliet says, yond light is not daylight, I know it. Aye, it is some meteor that the sun exhaled, to be thee this night a torch-bearer, and light thee on thy way to Mantua. Yet, therefore stay yet, thou needst not be gone. Let me be ta'en, let me be put to death. I am content, so thou wilt have it so. I'll say yon grey is not the morning's eye, 'tis but the pale reflex of Cynthia's brow, nor that it is not the lark whose notes do beat the vaulty heaven so high above our heads. I have more care to stay than will to go. Come death and welcome, Juliet wills it so. How is my soul? Let's talk, it is not day. So he almost kind of signs his own death here. He says he will die if that is what Juliet wants, but he accepts that if he remains in Verona, he is going to be killed. And this is interesting. Remember, there's lots of celestial imagery in Romeo and Juliet, often aligning the lovers with heaven and creating a kind of cosmic significance for their love and almost like a religious experience to their love. And here he talks about the vaulty heaven that is so high above their heads, almost untouchable, separate from them. And so before, that heavenly religious significance of their love was represented by that celestial imagery, but now the heaven is high above their heads. It's something they can't touch, it's something they can't reach, and they're separated from heaven. And this foreshadows their separation as lovers, the idea that the two of them will be parted soon. It is, hie hence, be gone away. It is the lark that sings so out of tune. So when she's faced with the idea that he might die, she says, no, you must go. It is the lark. I don't want you to be found by the watch. It is the lark that sings so out of tune, straining harsh discourse and unpleasing sharps. Some say the lark makes sweet division. This doth not so, for she divideth us. Some say the lark and loathed toad changed eyes. Oh, now I would they had changed voices too, since arm from arm that voice does other fray. Hunting thee hence with hunts up to the day. Oh, now be gone, more light and light it grows. So the lark, this thing that she was mentioning before and saying, no, it's the nightingale. The lark, which is often associated with light and kind of pleasantness, a new day and safety. In this case, the lark becomes the villain. It's that thing that's going to divide them. So she says the sound and singing of the lark that's normally so beautiful is to her painful and horrible because it's going to take him away. More light and light, more dark and dark our woes. So this is interesting. Remember that motif of light and dark imagery that runs all the way through Romeo and Juliet, that binary opposition of light and darkness, that repeated motif. With the break of daylight, their woes actually become darker. So here, Romeo is suggesting that their love is becoming subverted to corruption. There's this idea that light does not bring them happiness, it actually makes their problems worse. So he subverts the idea of light and safety and happiness. Enter the nurse hastily. Madam! Nurse? Your lady mother is coming to your chamber. The day is broke. Be wary and look about. Then window let day in and let life out. So by saying let life out, she's talking literally about Romeo leaving through her window. And by saying let life out, she's suggesting that Romeo is her life, he sustains her. This is kind of like previously when Romeo was saying Juliet is the sun, she sustains him. In the same way she's saying let the light into the room and let the life out of it with Romeo. Her life will be leaving. Farewell, farewell, one kiss and I'll descend. And he goes down. Art thou gone so, love, lord, I, husband, friend? I must hear from thee every day in the hour. For in a minute there are many days. Again, there's this idea that time is their enemy. In a minute there are many days. Remember, the passage of time is an enemy to them, even though their courtship is very, 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 very short. And equally, these address terms, love, lord, husband, friend, these kind of open, loving expressions, these address terms, juxtapose what we hear from the Capulets and the Montagues. Wife, husband, those kind of things that are quite clinical. And she's kind of subverting the conventions of love in Verona, the polite conventions of love and the kind of acceptable ways of showing love in Elizabethan society. Oh, by my count, I shall be much in years ere I again behold my Romeo. So she's saying, next time I see him, I will feel like I'm many years older. Time will pass so slowly for me. Time is my enemy. Farewell, I will omit no opportunity that may convey my greetings, love, to thee. Oh, think'st thou we shall ever meet again? I doubt it not, and all these woes shall serve for sweet discourses in our times to come. So he's saying, no, I'm certain we will meet again. But Juliet has a different vision. Oh God, I have an ill divining soul. So she's talking about prophecy now. She's being prophetic. She's thinking into the future. If you're familiar with Harry Potter, there's divination in the school, and that's kind of looking into crystal balls and predicting the future and things like that. So an ill divining soul, she sees their future, but it seems to be something ill, something bleak. Methinks I see now, thou now. I see thee now. Thou art so low as one dead in the bottom of a tomb. So again, here we've got that foreshadowing. She pictures him in this kind of prophecy as being at the bottom of a tomb. And of course it is proleptic irony, it is foreshadowing. She will literally never see him alive again. This is the last time the two of them will see each other. Either my eyesight fails, or thou look'st pale. And trust me, love, in my eye so do you. Dry sorrow drinks our blood. Adieu, adieu. O Fortune, Fortune, all men call thee fickle. If thou art fickle, what dost thou with him that is renowned for faith? Be fickle, Fortune, for then I hope thou wilt not keep him long, but send him back. Okay, so we're going to end there, but the last thing I want to draw your attention to is this. Now, in last week's work, I asked you to have a look at the PowerPoint that was about Boethius and that notion of the wheel. Remember, in that idea, the goddess Fortuna spins the wheel and changes the fates of man. It's a kind of medieval philosophy. And so this represents fatalism. She's personifying fortune. She's calling out to the goddess Fortuna, oh Fortune, Fortune. And she's personifying fortune and their fate as something cruel that's continuously operating against them. So we can relate that quotation to Boethius' notion of the wheel. It evokes notions of that idea and is reminiscent of that idea. So we'll stop there. So at this point, Romeo has left to be banished to Mantua. Juliet is obviously heartbroken. She's had this terrible prophecy that something awful might happen, and we know that from this point on, the two lovers will never see each other alive again. The second half of the act, which we'll read in a moment, and in a moment when we pick up, we'll just pick up again on page 82, is the conversation between Lord and Lady Capulet as they prepare Juliet for marriage and as they present the idea that she will soon marry Paris. It's all about her response to that ultimatum presented by her parents. Okay, well done.